Okay, I'm Kay Menendez. Originally, when I was little, my name was Kay Lang, and I am the fourth of five children. And so we're all about 4 years apart, except for my sister Carol and I are 2 years apart. So we were more like twins growing up. And she's like, she always has watched after me. I can just say my mother put her in charge of me when I was born. And we had a wonderful life. We did not have a lot of money. My dad worked in the oil industry. He was actually the man that sent out the trucks down to St. Mark's to get the fuel as it came in from Texas. And we lived in a house that was owned by his company. And we did have a nice life. I love that I was one of five children. I always have somebody that loves me and takes care of me. And since I was one of the youngest, they really took care of me. The older brother and the two older sisters, and then my youngest brother, 4 years younger than me. And by the way, he's a preacher now. And we had a good life. We did not have a lot of money, but we always had what we needed. And we were very obedient children. I'll say my mom and dad were very strict on us, and I'm glad that they were, because my dad especially cared about who we went out with and how late we came in, and we better be in at 11 and not 11:01. And that's the kind of man that he was. He was very particularly with his girls. But we had a good life. Grew up in Tallahassee. I went to Leon High. I loved high school. I got to be a cheerleader, and I loved that. And my sisters were both cheerleaders, and that was the thing we all wanted to be. I had a boyfriend in high school, and I ended up marrying him very young, 19 years old. And I did. He ended up going to vet school at Auburn, and we got married but too young, maybe. And but we had a good life. But then I had 3 children, and I could feel things falling apart. Not just his fault, but mine too. And I think it all stemmed from getting married too young, maybe. He went to vet school. I helped him to go to school, and worked during that time as a teacher. I taught school for 32 years in all, mostly second graders, and I loved my job. But there was a lot of, it's hard to raise 3 children. I will tell you that, it's very hard. And just particularly trying to have the family time that you need. Along the way, though, my brother being a minister, I did find God. I'd gone to church my whole life, but I just went to church. But my brother being a minister, I watched him change. I watched him grow up. I watched him be a wonderful man. He writes books, and he was a great preacher. And he just shared his life with me, and we all were amazed at him. He's still an amazing man, and all of us we were so impressed with the way he brought up his own children and the way that he lived. And I just wanted that life that he had. And I got to where I listened to him, and he would always share with me things that he could see in me, and things that were good about me, and things that he admired about me. And I listened, and listening was the best thing I could do, because I saw it in his life. He lived it day by day, and the way he brought up his own kids. But as time went on, my husband, he got off base, and he really was going to church, and he was deacon in our church, but he got to loving other things more. He was a great guitarist. He could write music. He could sing it. He was very good in that. And then he he invented a machine. He was very smart. He invented a machine that throws out skeet that hunters. Then you do use a little remote control thing, and it'll shoot them out. And then people shoot at it with a bow and arrow mostly, rather than a shotgun or whatever. Mm-hmm. But anyway, he got to love other things more and than his family, and he ended up having an affair. And he was my high school sweetheart. It broke my heart. I can't tell you what it did to me. But through all of that, I had my children, and I really, they stayed with me. And but I don't know what I could have done without God. I don't know. Because God is the perfect husband. And I lived on that verse. Your maker is your husband. I can't tell you how much I dreamed about that I had the best husband in the world. And he was watching over me, and he was. My family stood behind me. My church stood behind me. My friends were the best that they could be, and they never let me down. And so finally we did have to get a divorce because I couldn't live with someone who was not true to me. And for a long time, I was single. And a single mom with 3 kids, starting with a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 13-year-old. And it was hard on us, and I had a hard time with money, very hard. He didn't pay me like he should. And I'm a teacher, and we know how teachers are paid. But I loved my job, and my job was good for me because I had to go there and I had to straighten up and be strong. Because those little kids, second graders, need their teacher to have her head on straight. And I did. And I had my mother at that time too, and my mother was wonderful to me. I don't know what I would have done without her during that time. But a lot of things happened during that time. My mother passed away. I still had God. I got breast cancer, and God was there with me, and my family was there with me. And it was tough, but always I had God and I had my church. And I was loyal to the church, and the church was loyal to me so much. I still have those same friends. They are with me now, and I can go to them for anything. We watched our children grow up together, and we're all still very close. And I think I went on one date. I felt like it wasn't the right thing for me to do. It wasn't right for my children to be interested in somebody else right then. They needed me more than that. So I finally was getting content with being a single woman and being happy and watching my children grow up. And although sometimes with them, particularly my oldest son, it was very hard for him because his dad had left him. But then I met this man. I went to my sister's high school reunion because she didn't want to go by herself. And she and Buck were in the same class. So Buck saw me and I saw him, and he asked me for a date. And so we got together because of that. And I met a wonderful, wonderful man who was also single, who had been single a long time. And I'll let him tell you about that. But anyway, he was an answer to my prayers and to, really, I wasn't even looking for anybody. I just thought, I'm okay. But I really wasn't okay. I was lonely. And we dated for a little while, and we got married when we were in our 60s. So we've just been married 12 years now. Mm-hmm. And I'm so thankful for him. And the whole thing I got to say is God was with me through all of that hardship. And now he's with me. And you know what? I've had a stroke since then. But he's right here with me. So God sent me somebody else that would help me through hard times but good times. Mm-hmm. And I've never regretted marrying him. And he needed me too. So there we go. But now I'll let him tell you about himself.
My name is Ernest Menendez. Now, I'm a junior, so my dad gave me the nickname of Buck way back when I was just a little tiny guy, because it made it easier. When we mentioned the name Ernest, we knew who we were talking about. That was my dad. So, but anyway, I'm born and raised right here in Tallahassee, just like Kay. Grew up right out here on Thomasville Road, very close to where Gym Collection is now. That's where our house was, right there. And so we were out in the country. We were 5 miles out of Tallahassee, but back in those days, about all that was out here where we lived were pasture land and homes and little small-time farming. Things were being done, but some cattle raising. But that's what was where I grew up. And my dad was the manager of the telephone company here in Tallahassee. So my dad had a good job. He was an electrical engineer. He made sure from the start that all of us went to church every Sunday. It wasn't a question, do you feel like going or do you want to go? You were going, all of us. And I've got 2 sisters and a brother, and we all, did the same thing. We went to church. We went to Trinity Methodist Church, a long time affiliation with that church, and a wonderful affiliation. The ministers there, the people there, were close friends with my mom and dad and our families. And we, just like Kay was talking about, we grew up together. So it was a powerful influence on me. And the youth foundation in the Methodist Church is what they call MYF, which is Methodist Youth Fellowship. And it was strong and it was good. And it had a good positive impact on my life. Went off to school at the University of Florida, got undergraduate degree, then a master's degree. Then it was right in the middle of the 60s, 1966, 1967, the Vietnam War was very much heating up every year. The draft started up. So if you wanted to do something about your military obligation, you could, and it was a wise thing to do, because if you didn't, you were going to get drafted, and you were going to be in the Army, and you were going to be in Vietnam on the ground in combat quicker than you could think you were going to be. So anyway, I joined the Navy. I didn't think I would stay in the Navy. I ended up staying 20 years in the Navy. And we were in several places. Saw a little bit of the world. The people is why I stayed in the Navy. The association with the people that I worked with and answered to, with commanding officers and that kind of thing. And it just was the caliber of people that I really felt good about. So that's what happened there. I got married. Her name was Pat, and she was a Jolly, Pat Jolly, and they grew up here in Tallahassee, out on the west side of town. When we got married, she already had 2 children from a previous marriage. Shortly after we were married, I adopted the 2 children. So they became, my children as well as, Pat's children. Then we had a son of our own, and his name is Marco, and he was born in 1970. And now I'm a new father, and I've got 3 children. And the oldest was born in 1963, so there's 7 years difference between Kirk, the oldest son, and Marco, and then my daughter Kendall is 1 year younger than her older brother, so she was born in 1964. So anyway, we moved to several places. It was difficult because some of the time I was away from home for extended periods of time, and that created some problems, particularly with my oldest son, Kirk. I needed to be there with him more than I was, and he developed some bad behavior problems. He got him introduced to alcohol, and the result is he's turned into an alcoholic. And we're still dealing with that. He's still dealing with that. So hopefully with the prayers and everything about that situation, it can be corrected. And he can start to live his life with more meaning to it than he has, for the last 40 years. Now, getting back to what Kay talked about, it was actually our 50th high school reunion. I had come back after the Navy. I spent 17 years in Arizona, but I had come back from Arizona to Florida, and I sought to find a job teaching. Actually, the degree I had, I was equipped with the credentials to teach, and I wanted to do that at the high school level. And so anyway, I was living in Tampa at the time of our 50th high school reunion. So I traveled that morning. I got up early, drove to Tallahassee. The first part of our reunion occurred up at the school at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. So I drive up, get parked, walk up into Leon High School. They had a table there where everybody was registering, and who did I see? But Carol, my classmate, Kay's sister, and Kay, and kind of figured out why she was there pretty quick, because I knew Carol and Kay were close. I had seen this woman way back when we were in high school. When she arrived, all of the guys saw her. So, and we liked what we saw. So, and then that Saturday that I'm coming into the lobby of Leon High School, and I see Kay, I said, I'm glad I came. So, and then as we were parading around the school that morning, my good buddy Ray Salas, classmate, teammate, he made a comment. He said, "Buck, have you taken a look at Kay? She's looking pretty good." So anyway, I did think about that for about 3 or 4 days, and I said, I've got to call this woman. Now I'm back down in Tampa. So it took a little work to chase her down over the phone. And I got a little help from Carol, her sister, who now was back out in Texas. That's where they live. And so Carol assisted a little bit in me getting the right phone number and everything to talk. And then we started dating over that summer, and that was the summer of
2012.
2011.
2011. That's
2011. And in August, I made the decision, I want to ask this woman to marry me. And we picked a spot that we both, well, I like like it, and I knew that she would too in Destin, to ask her right out on the beach. And I lined up some photographers to be there to take, not to video it, but to take pictures. And I'm glad I did that, because that we can remember some of those moments. But anyway, she said yes, and so then we start planning for the wedding. Then October the 29th, 2011, something occurred that changed my life. There's no doubt about what took place. Because of Kay's talking about it, I made the decision to get baptized, by Chris Stowers. And Rick was, I think, involved as well, but mostly it was Chris. And when that occurred, and I knew that I'm now forgiven because of what Jesus, told us. And that was such a relief to have some things lifted, that I'm no longer have to worry about or be concerned about. I've been forgiven. And then we had a men's group at church, and Danny Nensteel was part of that, Tom Mathias and Rick Whitney down the street here. The four of us, we sat there. I could feel inside of me the Holy Spirit coming and being in me. I could feel it. And it started to change the outlook, the way I looked at things. And so I'm so grateful for Kay, because she was the one that talked about that, and I quickly agreed, to do it. But it changed my life. And I'm sorry, just from that point forward, I've looked at things. I've been able to come from the heart without, thinking about it, without telling myself I got to do this. It just now occurs. So it was just a neat thing. And now we've been together and married for 12 years. And all the things with our church family, and all the things with our families, her family, my family, and then friends, associates. It just really ties everything together. So.
Yeah, and after you became a Christian, then we got married. It was not before.
Yeah.
So he changed, and I changed way back when I was in my 20s. All of a sudden actually I was in my early 30s when I was actually baptized, but we started off the right way when we were little. Family. We went to church. Both of us were like that. We had wonderful parents that loved us deeply, and God was always in our life, but we had to make our own decision when we were old enough to, and I'm so thankful for the way my parents brought me up, and Buck feels the same way, had us in church, and but finally, for some time in your life, you have to decide for yourself, and I'm so glad that came to me. And then I'm glad that he was willing to go to church with me when he'd been going to church most of his life, but he went and he had to make that decision for himself, just like I did. And so we're grateful that both of us, we talk about how wonderful it was that our parents cared about us when we were little, and they took the time to be with us and help us to grow up and make our own decisions in life. And so grateful for that. And I'm great. God was always there through all of this stuff, and that's what I can call it, stuff. Raising our children, I raised mine by myself pretty much, but God was always there, and they're doing pretty good. And anyway, that's us.
I'm going to ask you a question. I have learned so much in the past 26 minutes. Mm-hmm. I did not know that was your real name. Learned that. And so if somebody were to come to you and say, Kay, you've said that God was with you through all of this, and maybe they're a new Christian or they were raised in the church and they really don't, it's like, what does that mean? We hear that all the time, like God is with you. Mm-hmm. What do you think that looked like for you? I know, for me, sometimes when I say God has always been with me, there's been moments where it's like, I should not have had, the strength to do what I did. Or maybe somebody says, I should not have had the patience that I did, but I truly feel like it came from God. What do you mean when you say God has been with you? What did that look like?
Well, I prayed to him. I looked at his word. I would see verses in the Bible that were talking about me. And so I would say, that's what's going on with me. And he would bring me through things. I could look back and see something that I had really prayed about, that it was getting better and better. At the time, it seemed awful, maybe, that I was going through breast cancer or whatever, or trouble with my children, but the words were there. Mm-hmm. And then, along with that, not only the words, but my friends were there who would help me through and help me to see, Kay, you're going to make it. You're going to get through this. And I could see it happening. So when he's with you, he's just right inside of you, and he's either he has sent somebody, some special person to you to answer that question and let you know you're okay, or you have read it, or I had heard it preached, or I had seen it happen to other people and they got through it too. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
No. If you had anything, if any youngster in our church came to you and said, what do you do when you need to hold on? Because those times in life that are hard, they're going to inevitably happen. Mm-hmm. And we're joyful through times, and then there's times that are hard. Mm-hmm. What would you tell somebody who's maybe about to go through a hard time or is going through a hard time of encouragement?
My father made a point to teach each one of us, 4 children, that there are going to come times in your life that are going to be hard. Mm-hmm. And so then Jesus himself told us, that you're going to have troubles as you go through your life. Now, but another thing that my dad talked to us about was prayer and the power of prayer, and what it can do during these hard times and good times as well. To be thankful, for things that happen that are good, as well as asking for help during times that are hard. So, it's a wonderful thing that I'm so grateful that my dad took the time to point that out, because I think it's absolutely right. And then when I started going to church at Shallow, the church that we're currently in, and started hearing and reading more in the Bible, and what kind of amazed me was that any situation that's a human situation, there's a reference to that in the Bible. Just about anything we can think of. So it's so gratifying to know that you've got something that you can turn to, and then listen to what Jesus is saying and the teachings that he taught while he was on this earth. We went to visit Kay's son Josh and his wife now Becca in Salt Lake City. And while we were there, we went to the church that they go to. That particular Sunday, the minister gave a sermon about Jesus being totally human, at the same time totally holy. And I thought it was such a good lesson in a presentation that particular Sunday morning, because sometimes we don't fully recognize Jesus walked this earth as a man, but he's the Son of God. So there's nothing close to that in any other entity that we can think of. Nothing. So we've got somebody, just like what Kay was talking about, that you can turn to. He's right there at our side. Anytime, all the time.
You've got somebody else sneaking up on your side.
That's right.
Well, I think that is just wonderful. Thank you all so much for sharing that all with me. It has really been a pleasure to hear all of that, and it's really, I'm really hoping and praying that this will bless somebody else and encourage them like it has encouraged me. So thank you all so much for being willing to do this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yes, Caroline. Thank you.